a re-recording of Sales Hiring Beyond Behaviors, the 5 Essential Competencies. My name is Chris Young, and I'm the founder of the Rainmaker Group. We've been in business for almost 17 years. I've got a bachelor's and master's in economics. I'm a recovering commodity trader, so that means I love numbers. I'm an entrepreneur, been part of several startups. 35 years of sales, 20 years of sales management. Our passion here at the Rainmaker Group is helping our clients consistently identify the best of the best. Several months ago, I wrote a post that shared the power law distribution of salespeople. And long story short, what the power law of distribution suggests is that a significant portion of the sales results are driven by the few, kind of the Pareto optimality thought process. 80% of the results come from 20% of the salespeople. And we actually find sometimes that the number's higher than that. More like 90% of the results come from 10% of the salespeople. On the x-axis, we have the number of sales professionals. On the y-axis, we have sales performance. And you'll find the blue arrow. That's the precious few alpha sales performers. There's many average sales performers, which a lot of companies are just they're satisfied to be able to hire. And there's a few of those low performers that unfortunately many organizations seem to keep regardless. But again, we help our clients identify the best of the best. Those top salespeople in that top 20th percentile will often outperform average salespeople by 10 to 20 times. Key takeaways for this webinar: job fit, the secret sauce that drives sales performance, and then of course the 5 essential competencies that every salesperson possesses to drive superior performance. When you're in that top 20th percentile, you need to have all 5. And then we'll share a couple of quick ideas, and we'll follow up some resources on how to hard code the 5 essential competencies into your sales team's DNA or culture. Okay, and we'll get this out of the way. We're going to be building throughout this webinar over the next 20 minutes to getting to the point of the 5 essential competencies. And you'll hear me say this several times. Without talent, we're not going to have the tenacity. We're not going to have the competencies. The competencies are not going to matter as much. So the number one most important competency is personal accountability for obvious reasons. And we can measure this. We actually have we use a tool called the Trimetrics HD in combination with our algorithm, which is designed around the job benchmark for each unique sales role. But we're always looking for personal accountability, as well as resiliency, goal orientation, self-starting, and problem solving. But we'll get to more of this here a little later. So the big question, talent versus tenacity. I saw a respected blogger, sales management guru blogger, put up another post. This is something that's very popularly written on, and I have something coming out on this here soon. And it's a big question, talent versus tenacity. The popular answer here is tenacity. Okay? And I'll tell you what the real answer is. The real answer is both, especially if you're seeking to hire that top 20th percentile person. If you don't have both talent and tenacity, you're not going to get there. And in fact, I would argue that if you don't have talent, you're just not going to. It doesn't matter. The tenacity piece is not going to stick as well as it could. Think of the job that you couldn't stand. Chances are there was some sort of role conflict between who you are and what that job is, and that is going to directly impact your tenacity. If you have a salesperson who doesn't fit the job well, but your organization is a high performance, high accountability type sales organization, all the tenacity in the world is going to be rubbed down if they don't have the talent. So mindset is directly from that talent and from that tenacity. Mindset is everything. How often have you seen that huge gulf between who we are and who we want to become? How often have you seen that salesperson who promises in the interview process to be that lion, but they're unable to deliver and they're a little kitty cat? So I want to share a powerful thought process, and we're not going to be sharing too many book ideas here in the webinar. I want you to focus on the webinar. We'll follow up with some resources here. This is the only book that I will refer to. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the sources, The Mindset by Carol Dweck. This is a real powerful book. Whether you have children in school or if you got a loved one who's on the teaching side or you're in sales, the mindset of yourself and your salespeople, it's profound, and it has the potential to move mountains. also has the potential to get stuck in the mud. So let's talk about the growth versus fixed. We'll start with fixed, and this is straight from Carol Dweck. Fixed mindset, ability is set and unchangeable. Accomplishments are related to natural ability rather than effort or practice. So put another way, a great way to test if somebody has mindset, fixed mindset rather, is how do they respond when they lose? Do they try to cover their tracks, or do they try to learn from it? Those with a fixed mindset often try to cover their tracks. They try to look good in the presence of others. Whereas on the other side of it, growth mindset, ability is changeable. Success is the result of effort, but smart is something that you get, not something that you are. So what we seek, and this is a real challenge, is even the best salespeople on paper, from a talent perspective, they don't always have that growth mindset. Ideally, and we can identify some of these traits in the profile tools that we use, ideally they'll have it all right there. But the challenge is that when you're already looking for that uber job fit from a behaviors, motivators, and acumen standpoint, oftentimes we can add the competencies, we can build on those competencies, whatever that person may have, with solid coaching, training and development, and then of course management mindset, as well as fellow salesperson mindset. We'll get into that detail here. I want to share an illustration next that talks about that mindset. I'll lay down the foundation here. This is an inbound sales center with approximately 30 inbound sales reps. It's a manufacturing company, and we never highlight who we work with, past or present. It's nobody's business, and we don't do referrals that way. We have very strong convicted feelings that way. I don't think people should be using powerful brands on websites and to sell. You know, if you can't sell yourself, I think that's a real challenge. Anyways, the average sales per call, it ranged from $55 to $70 per call prior to us getting there. Now, I want to be really, really clear about the language here. The average sales per call, sometimes we call it APC, ranged from $55 to $70. So if you were producing $55 to $70 per call, you were doing a really, really, really good job. Okay? And I'm going to share 3 examples. And the commonality with these 3 is that each of these 3 had the behaviors, motivators, and acumen necessary to do the job well. Because what we were after is the outliers. We were looking at outliers. We love to look at outliers when we work with our clients to identify, is there some special process, some special scripting? Is there something special about the way that these folks approach their job that we could take and translate to others, share with others, and raise the whole bar? So one more time, and I'll repeat this because it is important. Each of the following 3 examples are high job fit salespeople. So here we go. Example number 1, Marv. When we started working with Marv initially, Marv complained about everything. Marv had a completely fixed mindset. And that mindset remained fixed. Marv did not respond to training. And so how does this apply to the competencies? Competencies shape the mindset. Okay? If you don't have the right competencies, you're not going to be tenacious. You're not going to have that mindset. Marv didn't want to learn. For whatever reason, Marv was satisfied with the compensation. And one interesting thing, going back thinking about Marv, is that Marv was one of those 30-something people that lived in the basement apartment of his folks' home, his parents' home. And that may have impacted things. Sales performance, though, 75 to 90. Compared to 55 to 70, Marv's a genius. So naturally, what the company was looking for is, how do we reproduce people like Marv? They just wanted more Marvs. Okay? But we had higher aspirations. Let's look at example number 2. Example number 2, Mary. Mary initially had a fixed mindset. The competencies were a little on the lower side. Mary modeled lack of personal accountability, resilience, and goal orientation. Everything was everybody else's fault. Other people got better phone calls than Mary. Mary became upset about stuff like that. And quite frankly, looking back, it was pretty random. It was pretty much impossible for people to get preferential treatment on the sales side. But over time, we put Mary through some development, some mindset shaping, through some training, personal accountability training, resilience training, set up some goals, gave her some additional resources like Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. And Mary responded well to training, and sales increased dramatically. And sales performance increased And they range from $75 to $200 average per call. So think about that, 55 to 70, and here we have somebody who ranged from 75 to 200. High job fit, and had the competencies developed, so that tenacity increased. Third example is my favorite. Third example is Amber. Initial growth mindset. Amber was grateful for the career opportunity. So let's just stop there for a moment and provide some context. The ideal hiring scorecard for this organization had 2 years in the college bucket. They're looking for 2 years of college equivalent. And Amber didn't have that. And what we like to do when we work with an organization is assess the talent. So we actually convince a company to assess talent, everything from reception person to shipping and receiving to welders on the assembly line. And we found Amber on the assembly line. And Amber was so excited to be given this opportunity to sell. In fact, looking at Amber's background, Amber was already selling, doing multi-level marketing type sales when she wasn't working. So naturally, because Amber already had some strong competencies, it just took some additional help to help Amber develop her competencies to an even higher level. And she responded really well to the training, and her already high sales increased dramatically. I mean, from day one, her sales were off the charts. In fact, from day one, her sales were higher than pretty much everybody in the entire sales team, which is profound. But again, it just shows the power of behaviors, motivators, acumen, and competencies, especially the 5 essential competencies. As you can see from the screen, sales performance range from $150 to $500 average per call. This is profound. This is the perfect example. And we look for people like Amber in organizations when we work with them, because they're there. And by the way, Amber recently received a very nice promotion because, as I mentioned before, this was an inbound call center. And what sales management was rather ecstatic about, but also horrified, is that Amber, as an insider salesperson, was actually beating outside salespeople by a factor of 4 or 5 on a monthly basis. So they promoted her. So job fit, it's that secret sauce that drives that sales mindset. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to keep mentioning it. Job fit is essential. And just a definition, job fit is that objective identification of the potential of a particular sales candidate or sales team member based on valid assessment results. Okay, so the process, we benchmark each sales role, we develop a hiring algorithm, and then we assess candidates, and we match them using a single score, single number to identify job fit. And for the client set, we'll adhere to it. The results can be rather dramatic. And once that hire is made, once that job fit hiring has been made, then we train for the 5 essential competencies. And here's a screenshot of the cover page of the report that we use. Again, we use the Trimetrics HT coupled with our proprietary algorithm to measure job fit. Job fit drives that sales mindset. It requires the appropriate behaviors, motivators, acumen, and competencies combination for a given sales role. So the reason I want to pop this up here, and I'm repeating myself from earlier, but to a little bit more clarification. Different sales roles require particularly different behavioral style. Okay? Motivators often will stay the same, acumen, competencies in the sales role, especially if they're direct customer contact, either virtual or in face-to-face. But that behavioral style, different sales roles will require potentially different behavioral style. For example, super outside short sale, door-to-door, B2B type sales are going to require much more of a task-oriented behavioral style, whereas account management, the long-term relationship sales is going to require more of a people-oriented behavioral style. So we've got to start with a job benchmark to identify what combination of behaviors, motivators, acumen, competencies are required for the ideal job fit. Okay. So moving on, sales management mindset drives sales performance. And I really want to pause here for a moment and just pound this home. Bad sales managers can destroy the potential of a sales team. You can have all the job fit in the world, but if you have poor sales management, they play favorites, any of those kind of bad culture type things, or if they just plain out just don't fit the job and they're not respected by their salespeople underneath them, these sales managers can destroy so much potential. So just like in sales management, there's a job fit that requires the appropriate behaviors, motivators, acumen, and competencies combination. And some of the competencies are similar, but there are some additional ones like leading, leadership, interpersonal effectiveness, etc., that are going to be more important. Brief thought process on outliers. We see them all the time. We're always looking to make our algorithm fit better, to work better, to better predict sales performance. And so what we like to do is run XY plots, run simple regression analysis. But when we're running these XY plots, we're looking for the odd ducks. Who's outperforming their job benchmark? And it happens all of the time. But here's the challenge. You can't hire for those because you can't ask people. Are you a single parent? Are you a single income earner in your family? Are you financially strapped? Whatever. Is there a short-term financial motivation that's causing you to work really, really hard, to do whatever it takes to be successful financially? See, a lot of people get into sales because that's where the money's at, okay? But they don't have the requisite job fit, the requisite behaviors and motivators in particular to do the job well. So we have to be really, really, really careful that we're hiring people who fit the job. And that's why it's part of the hiring scorecard. When somebody has the experience, the education, the background, the training that you're looking for, I'd be looking for job fit on the hiring scorecard and job fit through a valid sales personality assessment, okay? So situational motivational factors will often enable low job fit salespeople with strong 5 essential competencies to outperform their talent potential, but it's short term, okay? It is short term. It is rarely long term. So, and caution, huge caution, past sales performance is not necessarily indicative of future sales performance. And people volunteer information, we get to know them, we find out that maybe in that past sales role, single income earner, single parent, single mom, single dad, whatever the case may be, and then they get into that next sales role and another income stream comes into the family, or the income goes up from that job, and the next thing you know, the motivation to perform, the motivation to cold call, if that's the case, it diminishes and the person goes to their normal sales potential. Okay, so we have to be careful. Past sales performance is not necessarily indicative of future sales performance. So a couple of quick thoughts on how to hard code the 5 essential competencies into your sales team's DNA. Hire for job fit. I've been saying it all along. I'll keep saying it. Sales personality is most important. So check for that first. Then you onboard, train, and expect the 5 essential competencies to be modeled. Okay. So an example of modeling is how is personal accountability treated? Resiliency. How do people communicate? Do they use weak words? We'll share a couple ideas here next. Senior management must model the 5 essential competencies, and then salespeople must model the 5 essential competencies. I've just popped up the Trimetrics HD. This is about page 57 of the typical sales assessment. This is 25 competencies here. We measure them objectively, and they're extremely accurate. So you'll see here as an example that resiliency is down at the very, very bottom. It's well below the national mean. And if the job fit is low, then this is going to be a real strong indicator that there could be some problems down the road. You also see that personal accountability, if you look closely, is at the bottom, 4th from the bottom. And again, if the behaviors and motivators are not a good job fit, these competencies are going to contribute to a train wreck. So maximize each of these 5 essential competencies. And again, you do it through the hiring process, but also you do it through the onboarding, coaching, training, and modeling each of the 5 essential competencies. So the first, and I always like to have personal accountability first because it's everything. Everything else is not in a particular order, but personal accountability is number 1. There are different training resources that you can put into place. Biggest piece is language. We'll share a resource here post-webinar. Resiliency, it's a language of possibility. You hear words like, I'll try to do that, or I can't do that, can't versus won't, or I have to do that, have to versus get to. Think of the law of attraction. Again, we'll share some resources. Goal orientation, monthly, quarterly activity levels, actual sales tracking. These are two different things. We need to be tracking activity levels, and we need to be tracking actual sales. And organically, what often happens is that we move to just tracking actual sales without tracking the activities to ensure that there's efficient use of time. And obviously, we can't monitor and track absolutely everything, but often what happens is that as a salesperson performs, the reward seems to be, in quotation marks, reward seems to be that we stop activity tracking. So we have to be careful about that because that's the beginning of reduced performance. Self-starting, again, activity tracking through a CRM. I'm a huge fan of CRM, particularly Salesforce. HubSpot lately, we've been using HubSpot ourselves. It's a powerful tool, as well as a inbound platform. Also for self-starting, coaching feedback loops. I don't think sales managers spend enough time coaching sales team members on how to improve. Got to do that. And then problem solving. Problem solving is going to be coming, largely through experience, simulation, role playing. Depends on the role, but problem solving can come through experience. But you can accelerate it. All of these things can be accelerated and should be accelerated on purpose. Okay. So questions. I'm going to share the questions that we heard. We are in the process of hiring salespeople. How can you help us hire smarter? Again, benchmark that role and look for that specific job benchmark. And we translate it into our hiring assessment tools to identify job fit. We give it out of a number. We would recommend that you do the same. We'd love if you would use our tools. We're not trying to sell from the podium here, but our tools are the best. We're always looking for better. And quite frankly, we haven't found them yet. If we find them, we'll use them. Whatever tools that you use right now, the biggest thing to do is get the data. And many assessment companies out there don't like to share the data. My thought is if they're not sharing their data, there's potentially a validity concern, or they just they fail to have the technology necessary to share the data. But get the data. And you can simply just run XY plots, sales performance, sales activity levels, try different data points. We're going to have a webinar coming up here in April talking about this. But take a look at your data points on your side, sales activity, sales production, and then take a look at the personality or the assessment tool pieces. One other thing that distinguishes tools that we use, most assessments use just behaviors, and that's a good place to start. But unfortunately, many of the assessments on the behavioral side are not particularly valid, and that's something to really be careful about. So whatever tools they use, even if you've been using it forever, I would be asking about most recent validity information, and I would be looking for ideally a third-party university or third-party respected company running validity studies. Okay. All right. Next question. What are some good interview questions for acquiring knowledge on the competencies? I'll be blunt. I'm not a huge fan of using interview questions to identify behaviors. It can be done, by the way, on the behavioral side. The rest of it, motivators, acumen, competencies, people are going to can those questions, and we have to be really careful. Thanks to books like Knock 'em Dead by Martin Yate, thanks to the internet, there's so many resources out there. And quite often when people are coming in and interviewing, they've done a lot of homework. They know how to answer the questions. They're posing. They're acting. You want to make sure that whoever it is that you're hiring isn't an actor, that they're the real deal. A couple of things, though, personal accountability. What do you do when you make a mistake? What I'm looking for in that question is, are they looking at themselves? Are they blaming others? Are they thinking, what can I do to learn? How can I learn? That's powerful. Their language, if they're using what or how type questions, it focuses on themselves, focuses on taking action. I like that. I like that a lot. Resiliency, what do you do when you lose? That's a big question I like to ask for resiliency. I like to hear, I get back up. I figure it out. I look to see what went wrong. I make improvements. I'm looking for fast feedback looping as opposed to blaming other people, crying myself to sleep, that kind of thing. Goal orientation, how do you set goals? I like to see how they set goals. I like to see if prior employers, prior managers work with them to set goals. Okay, but again, we're getting into the danger of canned answers here. self-starting, I like to ask people, what's a typical day look like? And I'm looking for as full of a use of the day as possible. I'm also looking for, are they using, green time? Are they using high energy time the best? Okay. So just a few. But again, trust but verify. Run the assessments. And again, if you're looking for a sample, just see what our tools can do. Drop us an email here. All right. Another question. Can you give an example of how far from the ideal candidate I should be looking that will still result in a good hire, given your examples about differences in talent and tenacity? That's a really, really big question, but let me tighten it down, screw it down here a little bit. We see companies seemingly make a short-term trade-off. I think they think it's short-term in job fit. I need a job now. I'm gonna sacrifice a little bit of a job fit because I need to fill that role right now. The costs are profound. Our recommendation would be just don't do that. Don't sacrifice job fit in the short run because you need somebody right now. So I would not go far from the ideal candidate. And if you say to yourself, we don't have a talent pool out there, if we did that, we wouldn't hire anybody, well, then my response would be increase your talent pool. Get creative. Use tools like LinkedIn. Use the job boards. Use everything you can. And feel free to give us a call. As part of the job benchmarking process, we can help you identify the interview questions, of course, but that tie into the assessments. But also, we can help you develop a better ad content that will attract and repel. Attract the kind of candidates that you want and repel the kind of candidates that you want to get away from. Okay? We keep losing the salesperson after 6 months. They seem to lose motivation or drive. Well, there could be a lot of reasons here, but here's the primary two main reasons. Poor job fit on the salesperson, poor job fit on the sales manager. Let me cover the salesperson. If you hire somebody who doesn't fit the job, behaviors and motivators, and you hold them accountable, and they're not doing their job, eventually they're going to be leaving you. So it's just a fact. So I would be really, really careful. Don't rush the sales hiring process. Make sure that they fit the hiring scorecard all the way through, particularly the assessment results. And if you're still losing new hires, there's something wrong in your culture, there's something wrong in your compensation, there's something wrong with your sales management. So it's just as important to look at job fit as salespeople. You need to look at the sales manager job fit. Okay? All right. Why is it so difficult to hire people that can actually sell? Again, job fit. It's about job fit. It's actually job fit and cast a big enough hiring net. We find that companies just simply do not invest enough in recruitment. And if you sat down and said, okay, take your best 2 or 3 salespeople, if you could quote unquote clone those people, think of how much better off your company would be. And think about what is it that your top 2 or 3 salespeople produce relative to your average. It's a multiple. It's always a multiple. And it's often a multiple of 10 to 20. In there, you've got a budget for more resources to go to recruiting. It's a closed mindset. It's really a fixed mindset to say we don't have a budget for recruiting. The answer is effective recruitment. Okay, how can I assess job fit and essential competencies for the team that I already have? Give us a call. We're happy to assess your team and help you identify coaching plans and whatnot. Okay. How much weight do you give your gut feeling about a candidate? Hey, look, after a couple of decades here in sales management, I give very little credence to my gut feeling about a candidate. Why? Because I'm a human being, I'm biased, and it seems like if I really like a candidate, if my gut really likes a candidate, then they're going to flame out even worse. So I've come to understand that you've got to trust the data. When we use our sales hiring assessments, trust the data, and make sure you check those references, of course. But you've got to fulfill that sales hiring scorecard. By the way, if you go to the resources tab on our website, you can download our sales hiring scorecard free, of course. Okay. Sounds expensive. Last question or comment. Sounds expensive for a small firm. Hey, look, the smaller you are, the more expensive it is for a salesperson when you hire a salesperson who doesn't fit the job. It is even more critical for small companies, for startups in particular. And you find that private equity firms, when they're backing a startup, they are using valid multi-assessment sales personality testing to identify salespeople. They have to. They need to get a multiple return on investment from their capital, and they absolutely make sure that the best salespeople are on the bus in the first place. So next webinar, End Bad Sales Hiring Using Predictive Analytics, April 19 and 21. So watch for our follow-up on that. And speaking of follow-up, watch for you'll receive our email here following up with a couple of ideas on how to shore up some of those areas on the competency side. And then connecting with us, here are our coordinates, Facebook, Twitter. We're most active on our blog and LinkedIn. You'll see us on Twitter as well. Make it a great day.